Hello, everyone. My name is Jim Selby. I'm with Service to School, and welcome to Career Preparation in the Liberal Arts. Really looking forward to our presentation today. As some of you know, I'm a storyteller, so I'll start off with a story. I had really the distinct honor of coaching a travel baseball team here in my area. And every now and then you run into a kid who's headed to the pros. And sure enough, one of the kids I got to work with is now playing AAA ball. But what I remember is when he was being recruited by colleges across the country and sitting with his parents as the coaches were talking to them. And they didn't spend a lot of time talking about the school, the academics, the location. They spent the majority of their time talking about the infrastructure, the resources, all that they could bring to the table to get this young man to where he wanted to be, which was pitching in the pros. And at first I was a little disillusioned, said, yeah, just aren't we going to talk about, faculty members and that? And then, as time went on, I came to understand that, like it or not, that's the way the situation was for, these top tier world-class athletes. And that really goes to our discussion today. Now, obviously, we're not going to be recruiting future Pro Bowlers today, but the idea is to present you with the type of information that you need as you're deciding what colleges to apply to and eventually what college to attend, understanding how they're going to get you to where it is that you want to go afterwards. You're not going to finish your undergraduate studies and then, life happens. Most of you have some plans now. You may want to go immediately into employment. You have careers that you're interested in. Grad school, professional schools may be the next step. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The resources that are available to you at the three schools that we will be talking with today, and the leverage that you have coming out of these programs with that liberal arts background. So I'm going to start off and introduce our panelists. Ricky Riccardi is the Associate Dean of Admissions at Bowdoin College. I think it's also important to note that she is a Navy spouse. Her husband's currently active duty Navy. We're also joined by Connor Jackson, who is he's the Assistant Dean of Admissions at Carleton College. And Andrew Moe, who is the Director of Admissions at Swarthmore College. So Ryan, Andrew, Connor, thanks for joining us this evening. Really appreciate your time. Looking forward to hearing what you're bringing to the table for us. Pressure's on. I'm going to set the bar high for you. So career advising. I remember when I was going through school, we had a great career center, but every time I went to the office, they weren't doing much other than helping people with their resumes. And it didn't have anything to do with how they were structured. It was just, people went to the career advising office rather than the career advising coming to them. So Ryan, can you talk a little bit about the approach at Bowdoin College in terms of career advising? When does that start? Who do you turn to? What are the resources available?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. And thank you to Service to School for hosting us and to everybody who could be here tonight. I know this is a really busy time of year for everyone and the end of a long Zoom season. So really appreciate your time tonight. I want to start by talking about what it means to be a part of a liberal arts college when it comes to career advising. And I want you to know that these are shared values among our schools. These are approaches that really go to the heart of who we are as institutions. And they are really successful. So 95, 96, 97% of our graduates are in a job, an internship, graduate school, have joined the military within 6 months of graduation, right? So they're incredibly successful models. And one of the reasons that they're so successful is because they are built around you. They are very personal models. And career advising really starts with getting to know who you are, getting to know what you think you may want, and really having one-on-one meetings. And it starts very early on, you'll start hearing about career planning at our institutions in orientation before you even take your first class. Because this is a process, right? You may know what you want to do next, but you may not know what you want to do next, and you may want to do some exploration. And so we have teams of advisors who are here to help guide you through that process. And that includes things like summer jobs, research opportunities, internships, and not just getting you to those positions, but in many cases, helping you with funding to get through those positions, right? And making sure that access to these opportunities is open to every single person in our communities. And you can't miss our advisors. You can't miss the opportunities to learn. They do start in orientation, but they will often set up tables in our unions, right? So that you stop by as you walk through and get a coffee. They'll hold class meetings. So 99% of our students will have gone through career planning by the time they graduate. And that includes opportunities, as Jim referenced, right, to work on things like your resume, your interviewing skills, how you write your cover letter. But it also includes opportunities to explore different career fields. What does it mean to be a consultant? What does it mean to be a lawyer? What does it mean to be a doctor, right? And there are these breadth of opportunities to explore not only the opportunities that are out there, but who you are and what you want out of the process. And you're doing it with experts in their fields. Each year, our campuses are bringing hundreds of employers to campus to interview our students, to hire them for internships and for jobs. So these are really, as I said in the beginning, successful models, but they are also, these are schools with highly sought after graduates. And this is true across fields and disciplines. There is no one right major, and we don't actually major in what you want your job to be, right? You major in what you love to do right now and the topics that you want to pursue in depth, and your job will follow. So you can be a biology major and go into research, and you can be a government major and go into law, but you could also be a government major who goes into education and a biology major who goes into consulting, right? The point is to really have this time to dig deep into the academic side that we offer, and at the same time to have your career advisor really help you explore what those opportunities look like. So the point of all of this is that you will not be alone, and these are incredibly successful models to help you get to the point where you feel like you have the world at your fingertips. And I'm going to pass it to Connor, who's right below me on the screen, to sort of talk about an example from Carleton.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ryan. And thanks to Service to School for hosting this. Really honored to be part of it. So the example I get to talk about is one that exists at Carleton and is called Pathways. And so this sort of brings a pretty data-rich tool to exactly what Ryan was talking about, right? That majors do not equate to careers at our institutions. And so the way this works, and to kind of home in a little bit more specifically, because I know some of this can seem a little bit abstract at times, is this tool gives us the specific information for 692 graduates of Carleton who have gone into the areas of banking and finance and investment. It displays out the majors that they had at Carleton, which again might aggregate in realms that you would predict, political science, economics, to name a couple, but are also going to crop up in areas that might be a little bit more unexpected. What it does beyond that, I think, is really valuable in that it gives you a breakdown of specific courses, alumni who are in this field, jobs and internships, even clubs and organizations that can be bridges to your getting that job that you want. So data visualization is a computer science course. You might not immediately think that that's going to be applicable, But in kind of analyzing this and working with alums and gathering their advice, we found that this is a really important tool that can really open up some doors for students who are going into this field. Money and banking in our economics department. That might be a little bit more intuitive of a course to take, but that's one that's listed here as well. Similarly, study away programs. Sometimes these are considered in the vein of, kind of a travel opportunity, but they can be really robust academic experiences that also connect out to the career you might want to do. So we have an economics program in Cambridge that would be a really natural fit here. Internships, places like Merrill Lynch and the like are also bridged out to. So wanted to make some mention of that Pathways tool that I think is an important one for applying some data and kind of clarity to this landscape of liberal arts and how that parlays into the career that you might ultimately want to pursue.
So I can go over Swarthmore's example of sort of what Ryan was talking about with regard to funding. I think liberal arts colleges are really great at providing resources to students in multiple ways. Financial aid is one way, right? But there are all these other things that you might want to pay for, you might want to be involved in. And one example at Swarthmore is our conference attendance funding. So this is a fund that's through our provost office where you are really entitled to go to up to one academic or industry conference each year. So you do apply for these funds, you put together a proposal, but essentially this is experiential learning. So these are conferences where you might be meeting with industry leaders, with academics, with researchers. Perhaps you are presenting your own research at this conference. If you're a psychology major and you want to become a clinical psychologist, right, attending an American Psychological Association conference might be a great opportunity for you. I'll give you one real life example. I had a student, his name was Grant. He was coming from Southern California and Los Angeles, and he was a film and media studies major, but he didn't have as much exposure to sort of industry leaders. And so he applied to go to the Toronto Film Festival to meet with producers and filmmakers and creative types like him. And we paid for his flights, and we paid, and obviously this was before COVID, but we paid for the attendance and lodging and the things that he would need to actually attend that conference. And all of our undergraduate students have that opportunity. And so as opposed to a much larger institution with probably fewer resources like that, our institutions are going to be able to provide some of that microfunding to sort of help you get started and help you get in front of folks that, might be really pivotal in your path later on down the road.
So one of the regrets I have through my own academic journey is for my undergraduate program, I never stepped foot on campus. I was at a satellite campus, remote learning, and I get really envious when I'm part of a discussion and they're talking about, yeah, I just talked to my roommate in college, she's doing this, or I just got a call from one of a fellow alum and, she's getting me connected with this job or this internship. And it just seems like, it's a really rich opportunity that's presented by each of your schools. Connor, could you talk a little bit about your alumni engagement? And then I know that ties into a little bit to introductions for internships and externships. Could talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of kind of alumni engagement and how it bridges into internships and externships, like you mentioned, Jim, our schools are really predicated on a sense of community, right? That is a foremost reason we see as why students come to our schools. So those relationships that you reference in terms of roommates, in terms of dorm mates, in terms of classmates, all those things, those prove to be incredibly enduring. It's not just kind of lofty ideals too, and those anecdotal examples, but we have pretty measurable data behind how this operates and the alumni engagement that plays a role in terms of students finding connections and jobs beyond their time at our colleges. So one measure of these is that our colleges rank at the very top echelons of lists, with nearly half of our alums donating to our institutions. Similarly, we see alums returning to our campuses at extraordinarily high rates for class reunions, volunteering for different committees and positions. So those include a lot of really active alumni, and they are excited to offer opportunities to current students as well as graduates of our institutions. These opportunities aren't rewarded just out of blind loyalty, right? Or like unchecked school pride, but really come out of knowledge of how adaptable and how skilled students are coming from our institutions for the reasons that Ryan outlined, and how the liberal arts parlays onto the skills that students will need going forward. So that's kind of a starting point of how some of this bridges through. And I think something else I would just mention is that so many of our alums are in really elevated positions at their organizations that they're in decision-making roles, right? They not only are eager to extend these opportunities to our current students, but they are in strong positions to do so. So I think that's a really critical piece. And they also have a firm understanding of the ability that our graduates have to synthesize information, to analyze information, to present their findings in written and spoken form, to integrate knowledge, to teach themselves new skills, to collaborate with others. You're going to be in small classroom environments at our schools. Your ability to work well with peers is absolutely crucial to your success. And it's something we know for a fact is a skill that employers are working for. So that's something else our alumni are intimately aware of. And with that, it's not uncommon, as Ryan already alluded to, for jobs and internship positions to specifically be offered to alumni at our respective schools. I know something that a number of us have is something called Handshake, and this is a platform that even makes that a little bit more streamlined of an opportunity. So beyond, just to kind of round this out, we see alums who are hosting mock interview sessions. Think like preparation for a case study, where it's really helpful to have someone who specifically has knowledge of business or consulting domains to give you feedback on how you're doing in that interview prep. And then we see alums who are just excited to be engaged because, frankly, they got to where they are today as a result of alumni from our institution who supported them. So that's kind of a starting point on this front. I know there are a couple examples that maybe we can start with Andrew from Swarthmore to talk some about externships and how they fit into this fold of alumni engagement.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is, I think, our externship program is emblematic of what you are going to find at selective liberal arts colleges, because it's really about making those connections at smaller schools and putting you in front of folks who are successful in their field, who are doing the things that you might want to do. So our externship program is designed for non-COVID times, where during the winter break, students will be paired with an alum, not only to shadow that alum in their workplace. So if you wanted to become a physician, an ER doctor, a lawyer, whatever it might be, we pair you with an alum who's doing something like that, but you also live with that alum's family over the course of that week. You get to know them, you swap Swarthmore stories, and oftentimes those externships can turn into longer term internships. And many of those employers will make those offers later on. And obviously that can sometimes turn into a job offer as well. During this virtual time, we've actually transformed our externship program into what's called SWAT Works. And SWAT Works is basically a micro virtual internship that is paid for by Swarthmore. So we actually pay your wages for 40 hours or 80 hours on a project basis. And you get paired with an alum. So we actually had a SWAT Works alum who was working in the admissions office at Swarthmore, and then we offered her a job, and now she's an admissions officer. So these can turn into real job experience, but it can also really connect you with that great alumni network that Connor was talking about. And I know that Ryan at Bowdoin has an example as well.
Yeah, thanks. So I think one of the things that I wanted to talk about is one of these connection opportunities that Andrew was talking about for Swarthmore. One of the ways we expressly put those opportunities in front of students at Bowdoin is this thing called a tech trek. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions that you can't go into tech if you haven't majored in computer science, or you haven't done graphic design or something like that. And yet a lot of liberal arts college graduates are going into technology. And so our tech trek at Bowdoin, we have one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast. And each year they go for a week and meet with 2 to 3 technology forward companies every single day. So on the West Coast, they're going and meeting with Google, with Apple, Facebook, things like that. And they are meeting with Bowdoin alums who work there, right? And so these alumni gatherings are an opportunity not only to think about how you use your liberal arts education in the world of technology, but also, exactly as Connor and Andrew have stated, is to really draw those connections with people, right? Because this is ultimately all about people and all about that community that you're a part of. And so to facilitate that, we have social gatherings between our current students and our alums, networking opportunities, not just educational opportunities. And one student who did this several years ago is one that I really like to talk about. He went on the East Coast tech trek and ended up with a job working at an insurance firm in Manhattan. He ended up getting bored with that, went on to work in development in Africa for the Clinton Foundation for a while, and then decided he wanted to go to business school. So he went to Wharton. Wharton is very well known in the world of business for its finance program. And there's this very important year in between your 2 years of business school, or this very important summer in between your 2 years of business school, where you get this internship. And this internship is meant to turn into a job offer after you graduate. So most people in business school have their jobs settled by September of their second year of business school, right? Well, instead of using Wharton's network of alums to set up his internship, he turned back to the Bowdoin network, and he turned back to a couple of alums he met on this tech trek. And decided through them that there was a great opportunity to work at Deutsche Bank in London. And so he got this opportunity for an internship at Deutsche Bank. And by September of his second year at Wharton, he had a job offer in London for the following year. And that just goes to show that this idea of our alumni network is not a 4-year equation, right? It's not something that you do while you are part of the Bowdoin campus community on campus. This is a lifelong commitment we make to each other to really support each other no matter where and when you need it. And so you'll find on our websites, for classes of 21 to 25, click here to make an appointment. For classes of 12 to 19, click here to make an appointment. For classes pre-2012, click here to make an appointment, right? This is about making sure that you are supported throughout a lifetime of career choices and not just your first job.
I'm still here. Thought you caught me off guard. I just can't. There we go. I was trying to get to that next slide. Fantastic. So I live in Virginia. Great colleges, great public colleges in Virginia. And when I talk to some of my kids' peers, why are you applying to there? Why did you go there? There's just a lot of preconceived notion. Well, if I want to go to a top business school, that's the school I go to. A law school, medical school, that's the school I go to. And it's rare that they're talking about the selective liberal arts and colleges across the country as being similar pathways. And we find that with veterans as well. I eventually want to be a competitive applicant at Yale Law School. In order for that to occur, there's 3 or 4 schools across the country that I need to go to, not knowing that the schools that we're talking to this evening are incredible pathways to these top tier schools and careers. And I also want you to talk a little bit about the long view. Okay, I've gotten there, I've gotten that first job, I've gotten into that career, but what about 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now? what is that liberal arts advantage and that open curriculum advantage that I'm continuing to be enriched by, decade after decade? Can I throw that on your lap, Andrew, to get a start?
Yes. I'll talk personally first. So I'm first in my family to go to college. I was low income through this process. I grew up with these messages, and I think a lot of students grew up with these messages of like, there are like 3 or 4 college educated professions out there, like lawyer, teacher, doctor, engineer, and like that's it. Like you're not exposed to anything else, right? You're not exposed to how do you become a novelist or a publisher or a researcher or an academic, or like how do you actually become a professor, right? And so I start with sort of that lens that there are so many possibilities that I think a liberal arts college is going to expose you to. And that's going to be through perhaps studying abroad. That's going to be exposing you to our alumni networks and these programs that we're really talking about, right? And I think sometimes we do get really wrapped up in like, this is exactly what I want to do. Sometimes I read those applications of like, this is the end point 15 years from now. And I want to just, take that student and say, let's enjoy this right now. Let's really dive into learning and figure out whether or not that's my pathway. I was supposed to go to law school. I was no good at math. I was no good at science. My parents said lawyer or doctor, and I guess I'll be a lawyer. And then I had a mentor in college who was like, I don't know if I see law school for you. You could be a good lawyer, but I don't know if you're going to really enjoy that. Why don't you think about getting a master's degree, a PhD, think about policy, think about colleges and universities. And here I am, I was a political science major thinking I was going to go to law school. And here I am with my doctorate in higher education, doing really well, right? In the field that I absolutely love. I love getting up every single day. And I think that that's a measure of success, right? And I think our students at our colleges are incredibly successful during their time on campus, and they're an active participant in defining what that success looks like. And that success might be that business school degree, but it also might be being really happy in what they're doing. So first, I'll say that a liberal arts education is really designed to prepare you for life, not simply to get you to that career. Of course, we're going to give you those skill sets to do that. If you want to become an engineer, come to Swarthmore, become an engineer. We will make sure that you are a great engineer, but we also want to give you these skill sets that never expire. Regardless of how the world changes, how the economy changes, things like critical thinking skills, analytical thinking, the ability to write well, communicate effectively with one another, and really preparation for the unknown. This global pandemic is a really great example of this. 10 months, a year ago, of course, we have epidemiologists, we have policymakers, but I don't know if we really anticipated how this was going to have such a devastating effect on the world. And in each community, it's a different type of effect. And so in order to solve this global pandemic, of course, we need physiologists and biologists to develop the vaccine, but we also need like supply chain management professionals to understand, well, how do you get from, the lab to actual distribution, and policymakers and economists and all of these different things. And I think the liberal arts lends itself to solving these challenges and these problems because we use multiple lenses in order to sort of teach you, in order to give you that education. In terms of what comes after pursuing internships and career advising and job fairs and all the things that we've been talking about, some students will certainly pursue graduate and professional degrees right away. And through various advising programs and faculty connections, our students are prepared to pursue that course, right? Some students enter a master's degree program right away. Sometimes that's related to their undergraduate degree. Sometimes it's actually completely different. And I think graduate programs are looking at our graduates saying, wow, you are really prepared to do a lot of different things. And that's what we need, someone who's able to solve some of those challenges. Others will pursue PhDs. We have some of the highest PhD rates per capita going into academia and research, and even industry as PhDs as well. So if you look at some of the top producers of PhDs, they're liberal arts colleges. Now, we don't have graduate programs, right? So we have to send all of our students on to top graduate and PhD programs across the country. And then, of course, others will pursue professional school. That might be law, medicine, business. a preconceived notion is that you can't pursue business as a liberal arts college graduate, and that's not the case. We are going to make sure that you have some of those skill sets, and a quarter of our students are pursuing business, even though we don't have a business program, right? We can make sure that you are prepared for the world of, a capitalistic society and business. And then I think another thing about liberal arts colleges that we do really well is if you are on the track to become pre-med, pre-vet, pre-dental, pre-law, these graduate programs are very well known with pretty low admission rates. We are equipped with these early advising programs to prepare you for taking the MCAT or LSAT or getting you in front of alumni to better understand those pathways, right? So if you look at national averages of getting into medical school, for example, they're hovering around 45, maybe 50%. And at our colleges, not just Swarthmore, but at Bowdoin and Carleton and all of the other liberal arts colleges that are selective, you're looking at 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 students getting into those programs. So, and of course, those will be the same for law school admissions as well. And then, of course, everyone asks, well, is it worth it? Is it worth the investment of going to a liberal arts institution? They think that they're paying $75,000 a year, and we're here to say that that's actually not necessarily the case. We have really generous financial aid, but is it the investment of time? Is that going to be worth it on the job market? And we're here to say yes. Our students go on to top organizations, nonprofits, businesses, research centers. I mean, you name it. Our collective alumni networks are really important elements of this connection. The experience you're going to get on campus is really important to you as well. And these resources are available to you for your entire life. We know that there are jobs that existed 10 to 20 years ago that don't exist right now, right? And there are jobs that exist today that won't exist 10 to 20 years from now. So again, we want to make sure that you have that liberal arts foundation, provide you those resources as a lifelong learner, being able to tap into our career advising programs later on down the road, as well as the connections that we make with our alumni. So I can definitely say with confidence that we can collectively ensure that our graduates are going to go on to reach their goals. And we're really proud of that. We're really proud of our graduates. So now I think Connor will discuss a bit about graduate preparation at Carleton.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Sort of continuing on in that vein, like, how do we do this, right? How are we so successful in sending our graduates on to, really great programs and opportunities? And such a big piece of this are the faculty know our students incredibly well, right? You're going to be in classrooms that typically have 15 students on average, 16 students, somewhere in that ballpark. And then you are going to have so many interactions with these faculty that are one-on-one, right? Whether that is conducting research, whether that's going to office hours, your professors are going to know you extraordinarily well. And so that is advantageous when you are applying for these opportunities down the road. One, they're absolutely going to have recollection of who you are. And then they're going to be able to speak in really great depth and detail, whether that be to graduate school committees, whether that be to employers. So we really think that is a pretty pivotal advantage of liberal arts and how our education is modeled out. And then I would say as well, right, like the success that our graduates have had going to these institutions creates kind of a virtuous cycle here. These grad committees look really favorably upon our students, and they want you to come and attend their schools, right? So, Jim kind of alluded to, there's this perception of I can only go to 4 places if I want to go to these top echelon schools. Right, the graduate institutions that Carleton sends our students to, the top 10, and you'll notice a little bit of a regional bent here, which is not shocking, but University of Minnesota, right, that's a state we're located in, University of Wisconsin-Madison, and then University of Michigan, University of Chicago, Harvard, University of Washington, Berkeley, Columbia, Northwestern. Right. So really pretty top and prestigious places. And that's representative of, I think, our liberal arts schools broadly, maybe save the little bit of regional distribution here. So wanted to speak a little bit towards that side of how this is happening, that we're doing so well preparing you for graduate school. And then I think Ryan has a little bit to add on Bowdoin's public service initiative. So I will hand it to Ryan.
Yeah, so I think if you take nothing away from nothing else away from what we're saying, it's that you as a human being get to define your path, and we are here to support you in that process. I really appreciated Andrew telling us his story about what he was supposed to do, right? I think we all start college with this idea of what we are supposed to do. And the joy of being at a liberal arts college is that flexibility to explore what you want to do and to really find your passion. One of the ways that we facilitate this at Bowdoin is called the Bowdoin Public Service Initiative. So Bowdoin is a school that was endowed and founded to serve the common good. And we are constantly thinking about the ways our students are going to leave the world better than they found it. The Bowdoin Public Service Initiative is one where you spend a summer in Washington learning from lawmakers, policymakers all across different government institutions about what it means to be a part of governance in the United States. This is preceded by time on campus, learning as a cohort. So you do a semester together as a cohort, reading articles, going to talks, and really being invited to pick the brains of the speakers we bring to campus. You have 2 weeks in Washington in your sophomore year to learn about the different areas. And then you go during your junior year. And this leads a lot of people to work in government and law, right? And there's this example of a graduate who participated in the Bowdoin Public Service Initiative and was really one of the creators of it as a student, who I think is just really indicative of all of the qualities that all of us have been talking about tonight. His name is Bill De La Rosa. He is from Arizona. He was a first generation college student. He was particularly interested in border security and migration. And that's what he sort of focused on while he was at Bowdoin. He was a sociology major, Latin American studies major. He earned a Truman Fellowship during his junior year to support his work in graduate school. Truman Fellowship offers you $30,000 towards your graduate tuition. His senior year, he earned a Marshall Scholarship that allows you to go to Oxford and earn a master's degree, where he completed his master's in migration and in international studies. He then spent a year back in the United States working as a policy analyst in the Department of Health and Human Services. He went back to his hometown in Arizona, working with an organization that advises on racial disparity in the justice system. While he was there, applied to Yale Law School and got in. He has deferred his time at Yale Law School because he also earned a Clarendon Scholarship to go get his PhD at Oxford, writing his thesis on issues of migration and border security. And so I think as an example, we can all point to examples like Bill from all of our schools who take their education from Bowdoin, from Carleton, from Swarthmore, and really think about the impact that they're going to have. And it's not a small impact, right? These are intentionally small schools with outsized impact on the world around them. And I think that that's a really important part of the value system that we bring. And as Andrew referenced, right, it's not that we prepare you for that first career, it's that we prepare you for a lifetime of making a difference in the world.
Great. So Ryan and Connor and Andrew, really appreciate your time. And now we're going to put you on the hot seat. So Casey is going to open up the mic, so to speak, and make chat available as well. And want to throw some questions out to you. So let me get us a minute here. Let's get the everybody on. And I know we have some ambassadors that are in the room as well. So in addition to questions, if any of our ambassadors have experiences in veterans they work with or personal experiences in a liberal arts curriculum or with a liberal arts school, love to hear from you and your perspectives as well. Ned, why don't I put you on the hot seat? I know you've got quite a portfolio when it comes to experience in the liberal arts curriculum.
I just sent Cassie a note and said that I thought there was a really nice message coming through from U3, because I think we're in a day and age where a lot of people think that, investing in a liberal arts education can maybe not be the best, with economics and all the rest of it, be the best tack. But when you talk about the value long range in terms of life skills, in terms of preparing for all kinds of different things. I started working as a consultant 25 years ago with a guy who's been in the business for ages. And he so subscribes to what you all said. Go to a school, get a good education, learn to read, learn to write, learn to think, learn to communicate, learn to get along with people. And then he said, I'll send you anywhere. You may have to make up some courses as prerequisites to go to a graduate school of this sort or another. But I think that so often is the case. I'm a product of a eons ago liberal arts education, and I value all of those pieces ever so much. And I try to practice what I preach. I did write you about the two veterans I was working with who are finishing up at online schools. Both wanted to go to four-year schools, but both were so far down the line in getting their educations that I thought, as I said to them, to upheave what you're doing, they're both working full time. So they were in a kind of a different bag, and they pretty much had their sights on them. But I'm a huge proponent of the liberal arts message, and I think you three have articulated it extremely well.
Thank you, Ned. I appreciate you letting me put you on the spotlight there without any preparation. Any questions from our participants? William Sneed, you still on here, my fellow Marine? All right, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Give me a question. I know you got a question. Bring it on. Do we have to unmute everyone, possibly?
So, Rob, how's it going?
Yeah, good to see you. Sergeant Sneed, good to have you aboard.
So I'd like to ask all the guys, how can, because one of the biggest things I have right now is I'm getting anxiety. It's almost time for me to get out. I have like a year and a half left. How can these colleges help with my transition? Because that's a hard thing, thinking about it now. It's a hard thing. So that's one of the questions. I have a couple more.
Ryan, you're familiar with transitions, as a military spouse. I'll ask you to start off in addressing that.
Yeah, I think, so it's a great question because it is something to be anxious about. There's a lot of change that happens. And it's a lot different to be in the structure and within known expectations of the military and your job, and then to move to something that's very unknown and very unfamiliar. So I really appreciate the thoughtfulness behind that, because I think even in thinking about anticipating that feeling, you are already ahead of the game. I will say, you will not be the first person to do it, right? You're going to be on our campuses with people who have done it before you, and they will be a really great resource, first and foremost, to turn to. But also that none of our schools are approaching this without having been thoughtful about that, right? About that moment, about where you're coming from, and about how we can best support you. So all of us have put infrastructure in place, whether that's specific academic advising, specific points of contact to go to on campus, really making sure that we are taking care of you as a human being first and foremost, and making sure that you are experiencing our institutions in the fullest possible way. I will add to that and say, we didn't admit you because we didn't think you couldn't do it, or you could do it. You know what I'm trying to say? We think you can do it, right? We read your application. We know our institutions, and your application is insight into who you are. And that grit and determination that you have shown throughout the military will be such an asset to you in thinking about that transition. And so all of those things together, the support of the institution, the thoughtfulness that you're bringing to your transition, and the skill set that you've already built up in making transitions throughout your time in the military will all serve you really well. And my final thing to say is ask for help. I got to college and it was definitely a big fish, small pond sort of situation, right? I came from a very small high school. I didn't really ever have homework or research papers. I didn't know how to go to college and be successful. And I didn't know how to ask for help. And if I could change one thing about my first semester at Bowdoin, I'm an alumna. If I could change one thing about my first semester at Bowdoin, it would be that in my first week, I would go to office hours of every single professor in every single class that I was taking and introduce myself and say, I just want to have a conversation, and get that idea that there's a stigma around asking for help off the table right away. So my piece of advice ultimately is ask for help when you need it, because it is there.
Yeah, great advice, especially, you know, we bring that veteran mentality that we can figure it out ourselves, and that's just not going to happen. Andrew, I think about your own experience as a first generation low income student. I'm sure you had several anxieties you were dealing with, and I can't imagine it doesn't impact and influence your work with students as they're coming to Swarthmore for the first time.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I grew up thinking like college is college is college. Like it doesn't really matter where I go. And it really doesn't matter like what part of the country or what size. Like I just thought like I'm going to get an education. I didn't know what the Ivy League was. I didn't know what liberal arts were. Like I didn't know any of this. And so walking into this, I guess I had a pretty similar notion of like, I go to college and I go to class and I meet people. Like I didn't think about support systems. I didn't think about a first generation center. I didn't think about a Black cultural center, women's resource center, like all of these things that we have designed for these like wraparound support systems, right? I am not going to say that this is easy. I am not a veteran. I was not in the military. I can't speak from that standpoint. So I can't speak about like going from, you know, an environment where there are very few civilians to an environment where it's all civilians. And now you are the different kind of person on that campus, right? But I can say like, it was really surprising going from a high school where like most of the parents of my friends didn't go to college. We were factory workers, we were blue collar Midwest. And then you get to college and you're like, oh, wait, you had conversations about college at the dinner table? How did that work? You know, oh, you had family friends who were physicians you did shadowing with them, like as a doc, like it was mind blown, because when you are in a more homogenous environment, you're just not exposed to those diverse perspectives and you know, different kinds of people. So I think the way that we do the work in the admissions office, the way that we do the work on campus is with that lens in mind, right? Every time I design an email, I design a publication, I design a video, I work with our Dean of Students Office, Academic Support Services, I talk about, well, what is it like to have sort of the profile of the student who isn't used to college? They didn't grow up with liberal arts, right? And let's speak to them in that way so that this captures every perspective. Everyone can really learn and understand what this place is. I do think some of us have, you know, I mean, every college is going to be a little different when it comes to that kind of support. I really love Swarthmore because our first semester at Swarthmore is pass fail. So it gives you that time, you know, 10 to 14 weeks to just get your feet wet. You don't have to worry about what your grade on your transcript is actually going to be. You can go to office hours, you can get 8 hours of sleep, you can join student organizations and make friends, and like all of the other kind of transition things, right? It's a unique thing that we have. I'm sure Carleton and Bowdoin have unique things that they have that we don't have, but that's the beauty of like this college search process, is that you can pick and choose, oh, wow, I really like that aspect, right? Or I really think I would survive, or I would thrive in this type of environment. And this is the kind of support that I would need. But I want to echo everything that Ryan said. Reach out for assistance, help. it is just going to make it so much easier because we are designed to give you that help. But we can't just give it to you if you don't necessarily ask for it as well. And so that is the best piece of advice that I give over and over again.
Could I just add that if William, and thank you for your service, if you had asked that question 10 or 15 years ago, there might be maybe more reason to be anxious. But I have to say, in my getting to know more schools and the work I've been doing over the last 25 years, schools today this is of key importance to them. You in the military you're a group of people who they just care about, and they're putting their money where their mouth is. And it's going to get better, but it's so much better than it was. And I have great confidence in if you've got, and every veteran, and I haven't worked with many, but that I've worked with is so motivated and so driven that what has just been said, you follow through with that, and you'll be in Fat City.
Thanks for that, Nate. Brendan, I see you have your mic off. Is that intentional? Do you have a question you have for the group?
No, sorry, that was unintentional.
Okay, all right. Connor,
I have a question.
Oh, sure, absolutely, please.
So I was wondering what, I guess, certain policies are on deferment for military obligations. And just for quick background, I'm in the reserves, and I was told about 2 weeks ago that I will be mobilizing in this coming July or August. Coincidentally, when I'm planning to transfer to the schools that I'm applying to. So it's not final yet, but in the case that I do mobilize, I was just kind of wondering I guess most schools' policies on deferment, would that admission still be good for the next following school year?
I think the resounding answer is yes. We understand your lived experiences. We grant, gap year deferrals. We grant 2-year deferrals for those who are going on Mormon missions or other military service around the world in different countries. So yes, you just communicate with us. Let us know as soon as you can so that we can plan for that. But your admission, your financial aid, all of it will remain there for you.
I would also add, I echo everything that Andrew says. It's a resounding yes. And I don't know the specifics of my colleagues, and I don't necessarily want to speak for them, but we have also faced this at Bowdoin in the middle of a semester where someone has been called up to active duty. And one of the real strengths about going to a liberal arts college is that we get to work with you individually on your situation and what matters to you, right? So in the case of this student, his name is Amir, he was called up, he's Army Reserves, he was called up in October, so midway through a semester. And what Bowdoin was able to do is essentially wipe out that he was there for that semester, right? So we were able to get him back his financial aid for an extra semester. We were able to make sure that he got full credits to graduate on time by giving him that extra time. And so it is a strength when you are looking at liberal arts colleges to think that we deal with you one-on-one to make sure that we're doing the best that we can to serve you and your needs. So yes, a resounding yes, but also yes, if that happens in February some year, right? And you've already started that semester.
Great, thank you.
Who's got the next question or comment? So, Justin, you just unmuted.
Yes.
Nice to see you, Justin.
I've been quiet. I just want to hear what everybody had to say, but this has been fantastic. I appreciate the three of you coming out. I, too, an ambassador, hopefully taking on a little more of a role in service to school here starting next month for a bit. I went to the Air Force Academy, which you don't know, it is a liberal arts school, an engineering school, and a military school all rolled into one. And I loved it. I loved the experience. I love the liberal arts courses. And any of the students on the call now are really going to watch this. it's definitely something that you will never look back and regret having that opportunity to expand your mind. Having a law class in the same semester as a hypersonics class. I mean, just like where, for me, I learned so much, and I just appreciate that. And that's been the foundation of my career. As I'm finishing my second teaching assignment at the Air Force Academy, and I teach calculus, and I've used everything, almost every course I took on the liberal arts side, I've used in my career. So I want to thank you all. I look forward to hopefully working a little bit more with each of you, and as well as all you veterans, and seeing ways that we can get more of them along this path. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Justin. So I'm going to share my screen again. Here we go. So I'm often asked, what's the advantage of having the VetLink partners? Are you getting favorable consideration? No. Are they are they looking at you very differently than others? No. They are taking the time to learn from us, to learn from your VetLink addendum, how your military experiences have contributed to your academic preparation, how they define who you are, what has led you, to apply to those particular schools. But without question, the greatest degree of value we get from these partnerships is the opportunity to introduce you to the Connors and Ryans and Andrews of the world, who then invite you for a one-on-one call to find out, what is it about a liberal arts school, or what is it specific to Carleton? So I'm going to throw my fellow panelists under the bus here, but I know they will recover soon. So as they're making these calls, what are some of the questions that they should be asking you to get a better idea of whether or not your particular school or liberal arts curriculum is something that they could consider and is potentially a fit for them? Ryan, yeah, I'm a military spouse myself, so let me pick on you and ask you to answer that question yourself.
It's a good question. And I think there's it's not a very funny joke, but there's a joke in admissions that the answer to every question in admissions is it depends. So I think it depends. And I think it really depends on you, right? So one of the greatest pieces of the application process is the opportunity to be really self-reflective about what you want out of your college experience. Does that mean that you are going to thrive at a bigger school or a smaller school? Does that mean that you're going to thrive in an urban center, a suburban environment, or rural environment? Are you going to be bringing your spouse with you or children? Is that something under consideration? Do you want to think about school systems? What do you want to study, right? What's the environment like? And so I think the questions that you ask should be really personal to you, right? About the type of experience that you want to have. I'm not looking for any specific set of questions. And when I'm having a conversation with you, don't have a set of specific questions that I'm prepared to ask you. Sort of going to the tone of our entire presentation, this is personal to us, and it's because we care about our work and we care about our communities, and it's personal to you because it's the experience that you're going to have. So the joy of the work that we do is that it gets to be one-on-one and individual. So questions that you might think about are ones that are areas that are really important to your thriving in college: location, size, type of classes offered, family support systems, social environment, right? Those are the types of things that I think about, but those are very individually specific ideas.
Great. Andrew, any comments on that? Any suggestions on, what to think about when they have these conversations with you?
Yeah, definitely. COVID has presented a unique opportunity to get as much of our outreach, recruitment, messages, info sessions, Q&As, campus tours, literally everything you can possibly think of, where normally, or at least before COVID, most of this you kind of had to come to our campus and experience that. And now there's such an opportunity for you to get that on demand at your fingertips on YouTube, on our websites. So I highly recommend that you just take a little bit of time and you start sort of perusing the admissions website, not just application requirements, but like listen to us talk about our community and the cultural values and who we are, and really think, is that a place for me, or is that not something that I'm super interested in, right? And start adding schools and subtracting schools to your list. And then once you sort of get through the admissions stuff, because we do design this to be authentic, we design this to present a really authentic look at our campuses, get beyond admissions. Ask me, email me and say, I'd love to talk to a student. I didn't go to Swarthmore. That's not my experience. I can't, and even those in our office that went to Swarthmore, like, we're a little bit away from the student experience. So ask me to put you in touch with students. I'm happy to do so. Ask them what it's like to be a student in the residence halls or meal plans or in class or something like that. Ask me to put you in touch with faculty in something that you might want to do. And that's the beauty, that's the benefit of being at these small colleges, is that we're not going to, pass you on to this bureaucratic like call center or something. I mean, it's an exaggeration a little bit, but like, honestly, I went to a college that's 75,000 students. And like, that's kind of the experience that you sometimes get. And so get in touch with us. We will answer your emails. We will be in touch with you. But you do sort of have to be a driver in some ways, in the driver's seat. So definitely use your resources in front of you.
Connor, you're not on my screen, but I know you're still here.
I am still here. Yes.
All right. Good to hear.
I would reiterate everything Ryan and Andrew said. I would also just reinforce that the docket of service to school institutions are really excellent ones, right? So they're not wrong choices here, but I think this is a wonderful opportunity to think about who you are, think about what you value, think about what environments you thrive in. I worked with high school students prior to switching over to the realm of admissions, and really just encourage them to think about where they had been most stimulated intellectually before, what that environment had been like, and then to use that as a guidepost for finding a college environment that might suit them. Right. So recognizing kind of your choice can maybe be guided by some of those dimensions. And then, ultimately the people are going to define your experience, and we are incredibly eager to help connect you with them. Right. So we can play some role in offering explanation and information, particularly as it falls along the lines of the admissions process. But as you're really going to understand what your academic and social experience will be like, talking to students, talking to professors is going to be the best window into that. So we're really happy to connect you there and to help this hopefully be a more personalized process.
Jim, can I ask a question?
Sure, please.
Of you three, and maybe this is naive, and it's of course, it's the question everybody wrestles with when you're helping somebody look at schools and trying to decide where to go. If a veteran, if William was to call you and have a discussion, could he have a discussion with you? Say, this is what I'm looking to do. This is how I did in high school. Is it beyond the realm of possibility to think that he could get a reading as to whether, academically you might be the right place? Because I mean, you are all excellent schools and competitive schools. And I know what these young men and women are bringing to you, but there's that academic piece. I mean, you can't hide behind. You got to deal with it. Is it? You know what I'm getting at?
I think we do know what you're getting at.
Part of your daily life.
I'm not looking for you to say yes or no, but to advise whether might be appropriate.
I will say those conversations are pretty difficult for us because this truly is a holistic review process. And we are looking beyond GPAs. We're looking at contextual information. We're looking at what the teachers are saying. or professors or supervisors or whoever is writing letters of recommendation. I think what would be helpful, we certainly welcome Zoom calls, phone calls, emails, et cetera. I think what's helpful is that if we present information, if we say, well, listen, most of our students who are entering, who have prior college, are typically getting above a 3.5 GPA. And someone would say, well, I have a 2.5. That's probably not going to be a solid academic fit. That's not to say that we wouldn't say yes, but it's less likely, right? We want, I think, students to self-evaluate based on the information that we provide versus like, can you look at my transcript? I really can't do that because it's not just Andrew that's making the decision, it's a committee making the decision. And so it just wouldn't be fair for me to say sort of a yes or no, or even say like, well, probably or probably not. So I would welcome the conversation, certainly, but we would be talking a bit more in generalities and talking about the typical student admitted to a place like Swarthmore has these qualities. And we actually publish what we look for in a Swarthmore student right on our website. Like you can go there and you can sort of read through it and say, oh, interesting, like that might be me. And so we try to make it as transparent as possible, but it's really tough when it's a holistic, highly selective process.
Right. Connor, one of the things you had shared with us before is that if Carleton chose to, they could admit nothing but students who had a perfect test score and a perfect GPA, and that you don't do that. I mean, so, and it was really eye-opening to understand that it is holistic, that you are looking beyond GPA. It would be, as you had shared with us, easy to admit nobody other than 4.0s and 1600s.
Yeah, right. The nature of this process, the nature of this is that we want a dynamic community. And yeah, that starts with students who have the academic aptitude to handle pretty high level intellectual discussions and research and expectations. But we also value the perspectives that are going to be brought beyond that, right? And students' willingness to engage. We're residential campuses, and we have some different policies on how that works for transfer students and veterans and some different flexibilities along those lines. But we care about things in terms of how students are simply going to be engaged citizens, engaged members of our community. If they're living in residential dorms, we hope they're going to be decent roommates, right? So these are some baseline of qualities that also factor into this beyond just the academic side of the house. And then I also wanted to just roll back to Ned's question. I would say that sometimes we can be a little bit more actionable on some of those conversations, not in previewing decisions, certainly, but in giving guidance on maybe what might be the right time to pursue transfer. And specifically, as students can, approach that conversation earlier in that process. Sometimes along the lines of course selection and different things that we're thinking, we can give advice on what classes might be more likely to transfer and what timing might fit into their process on that. So just wanted to add that piece as well.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add too that for all of the veterans who are here and listening to this in the future, that we are well aware that high school might not have been your time to thrive, right? And that you have evolved as a whole person beyond your high school transcript. And so to Connor and Andrew's points about holistic review, we are taking into consideration all of who you are, all the components, right? We are very academically rigorous institutions, and we want to make sure that we are setting you up for success. And that is certainly a part of the review process. But for anyone who is thinking like, oh my God, they look at high school transcripts and they're all 4.0s and they can refuse a whole class of 4.0s or have a whole class, that's not, please don't look at that as like, that is a barrier, right? You have had life experiences that have grounded you in different ways after high school than a high school student who is going straight to college. And so please know that we take everything into consideration. It's all about the context, right, of how we review you and when we review you. And I don't want you to think, I didn't do well in high school, I can't apply to Swarthmore, Carleton, or Bowdoin, because that's just not the case. You have moved beyond that, and you are going to show us a lot more of a skill set, both social and academic, than what you would have shown us had you come straight from high school.
Connor, Ryan, and Andrew, really appreciate your time this evening. At the same time, I've got to shine a star on Casey Valente, who's in the background there. Casey is a military spouse, former Army captain, and her husband is about 1,500 miles away. So she's managing an incredibly busy household, while at the same time, this does not happen without her. So Casey, I know you're our silent warrior back there, but just from all of us, thank you so much for everything that you've done. I do want to get everybody back to whatever is happening. We wish you a happy holiday. We'll be around and look forward to any questions you have. Here's the contact information. If for some reason you write it down, throw away that piece of paper, let us know at Service to School and we'll get you that contact information. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jim, and the rest.
Thanks so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye,